Oh boy. Yeah, a whole lot going on, man. Looks like we live. What's going on, everybody? Conscious approach. Another week, another video. JV wins, Dogon SS. Pleased to have you with us once again. It is October 25th. Got a truncated broadcast this week because both of our schedules, respectively, are a bit hectic at the moment. But we're going to make the best of it because we never take weeks off. So fear not, for we will not ever take a week off. Before we get into this week's commentary, wanted to remind everybody, man, if you're watching this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, comment on the video, let us know what you think. Let us know where we went wrong. Let us know where we went right. We are not cultivating a cult here. We embrace diversity of thought. So the idea is that you should not agree with everything that we have to say. And you damn sure shouldn't agree with everything I have to say. So definitely support, man. Appreciate you supporting logical content. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, so on and so forth. Comment wherever you see this stuff, share it because we are growing and things are going to get better. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get into this week's topics, man. First up, we are going to talk about rapper Westside Boogie and some comments that he made in regards to the hip hop industry. So, this was a TMZ sort of, you know how TMZ works, right? So they pop up on you in a public place to ask you some questions, and that's how they do celebrities or even like remotely public figures and whatnot. Westside Boogie is a rapper affiliated with Eminem. He's big out on the West Coast, obviously, and so they wanted to ask him his 2 cents because Taylor Swift released a new album, I believe, last week. Now, I'm no Taylor Swift fan. I don't really follow Taylor Swift like that. Um, the songs that I know of Taylor Swift are the ones that are really popular, the singles and all that. I don't know too much of the album because I don't follow Taylor Swift like that. But I know enough to know that she is extremely popular. And apparently, Taylor Swift dropped an album that in the first week, in terms of, I guess like streams, eclipsed they eclipsed the sales of Drake, Kendrick Lamar, and Lil Baby combined. Um, yeah, so Drake is as big as it gets in the hip hop scene. So for you to eclipse Drake single handedly is one thing, but when you throw Drake with two other popular hip hop artists and you combine them and you still outpace them, there's something to be said for that. And so I guess that sparked this conversation around whether hip hop's dominance as a major genre, because hip hop is no longer a subgenre, it's a major genre. And I guess the idea is, is hip hop losing its luster? Is it losing its dominance? Is pop starting to creep back up into the recesses of our collective consciousness and take over? And so one of these TMZ guys ran up on Westside Boogie and asked him specifically about, what rappers need to do in light of what's going on or what happened with Taylor Swift doing so well with some of these hip hop numbers sort of declining as of late. Um, and so they asked him his opinion, and this is what he had to say. And then, of course, after that, we will give our opinions about this particular topic.
There's an article that's like making waves in rap right now because they're saying that hip hop, although it is the most dominant form of music right now in genre wise, that there's concern that the magic is gone.
Man, you know what's crazy? I was just talking to somebody yesterday when I was listening to a pop song, and I told my manager how white people feel like they're paying more attention to the details of songs right now, and I don't think rappers understand like the details still matter, and people notice it. They like subconsciously, they probably don't even notice they notice it, but that lazy music we losing because of it. So rappers, get it together, stop being lazy. It's also just not about lyrics. It's like it's beat selection, it's telling your story because we in a space where everybody rap good now. So like, how you gonna deliver your message? How you gonna make it sound authentic? How you gonna make it sound different?
What do you think the answer is?
For one, if you tell your own story, it's automatically gonna be unique because it's your story. As far as sonically, it's about pushing yourself and pushing different limits. Don't get complacent because when you're complacent, that's when you get trash.
Are the beats like really like? I mean, there's some hot beats. There's some really crazy producers out there.
Yeah, there's some hot beats. I think the magic happens when the artist do what he's supposed to do on the song and the producer doing what he's supposed to do on the song. And that cohesive moment creates the magic. When it's like lopsided, love you, man, thank you. When it's lopsided, you just never know.
What did y'all do for Eminem's 50th? That's your guy. I know.
All right, so it went on, and they talked about some other stuff that wasn't necessarily relevant to this particular topic. But the only thing that I would disagree with him on in that soundbite is when he said everybody's rapping good nowadays. I don't think that I agree with that. But other than that, though, that was what he said. So we talk about music and the influence of this stuff a lot. We came up listening to this stuff. So, and we still, for the most part, we still do, even though I think I'll speak for myself. I have some of my misgivings about the impact of the music on a broader societal level. But strictly within a musical context, I still listen to the music and consume it on a pretty regular basis. So the point is, we came up on this stuff pretty heavily. So, what are your thoughts on what he had to say in regards to, whether is the music losing its luster, or do rappers need to step up and do a better job, or, any of that stuff? Did any of that pique your interest at all?
Yeah, I think he raises a very good point. I agree with most of it. Just like how you said, when he says everybody can rap good, I don't know about everybody, but I think what he means is, I don't know what he means. So I'm not even going to speculate on that. I think it's kind of like where he's getting at with that, at least, was like, like everybody in the league right now, in the NBA at least, they're all skilled, but everybody can't hoop like that. And so just because you know how to put bars together and stuff like that people can put bars together now in a way where back in the day, those guys were hot. Mm-hmm. And so if you drop random rapper from right now and you drop him in the late 90s, people are like, dang, how is he stringing this together? And he's rapping fast like that? Like, this guy's hot. I think that's kind of where he's at with that. But nevertheless, what ended up happening in the rap industry is that a lot of people started, once direct to consumer became a thing, a lot of rappers started to not go independent, but they started to do things themselves, create music in their houses and closets and storage units. They just started making music all on their own. And so they're not being produced in high level production studios anymore. One thing that I can say about Drake, at least, even though I don't like all of his songs, one thing that I can say is that, typically speaking, outside of his last one, even his last one, the beats were pretty good, but sonically, his production is phenomenal. I can't hate on anything as far as like the actual production, the amount of care and stuff that goes into Drake's music. So especially the one Views, that whole album CD. What year are we in? That whole album was sonically spectacular and crisp and clean. Other people don't take the time out to do such. The mixing and mastering is a lost art in the hip hop community. A lot of beats right now there's so many beat kits that every beat is starting to sound the same. And it's not as much nuance going on in hip hop as there once was. And just like how he said, he said, hey, well, white people are actually paying attention to the details in their music. I guess when he's saying white people, he's talking about pop songs and stuff like that, which they are. They haven't dropped the ball when it comes to actually putting a lot of effort into their music. So with that, the pop songs, they hit. And a lot of rap songs, even though that they're good, we've gotten to this dumbed down nature in hip hop. I was talking to some family members yesterday about it, and I was saying that our music was dumb. I can now look back and hear old heads telling me that, what are y'all listening to? I can't understand what they're saying. I don't know what they're talking about. And I was like, are you kidding me? These are bars.
Yeah.
And then now when I hear what's going on the radio, I can for the songs where I can audibly hear what they're saying, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're talking about. So there is no substance. There's not much to it. So music nowadays, or hip hop music nowadays, if you want to call it hip hop, is more or less rap. And so rap nowadays has become so watered down, mundane, and uninspired that it's difficult to listen to it and actually appreciate the music behind it. It's so cookie cutter, it's so rushed that there is no art to it anymore outside of it being an art form. So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I struggle with this a little bit because like it's funny you brought up the analogy of like, sports. And so, basketball players today are highly specialized, but not all of them are actually good basketball players.
Right.
Like very much like sports, music is a generational experience.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I find myself in my fields looking at today's music and lamenting on how not good it is compared to the way it used to be, I'll stop and I ask myself whether I feel that way because I'm just generationally aging myself out of the music, which is something that happens to everybody, or whether it is actually objectively worse. Sometimes I struggle. I don't know which is which. The only thing that I can really say is that I have noticed certain fundamental differences that the music has undergone as the generations have transitioned from the previous one to the current one. So like certain things that I've noticed with the way that the music works, like, this music is trying to adapt to the way that the way that we as human beings consume stimuli. And so because we're like, for example, we intake so many different stimuli and messages on a daily basis, whether it's the phone or whatever it is that you're on, that our attention spans have gradually decreased. And as a result, because of our collective, lessening attention spans, that is being reflected in the music. And so now you're listening to this music where you have full songs that are like a minute and a half long.
Yep.
2 minutes long.
Yep.
No hook, no chorus. It's just a couple of verses and the song is over. And the song was like 2 minutes long. And it's a shock to my system because when we was coming up, I was used to 3/16s in a chorus. A song would be, a hook, a verse, hook, verse, hook, verse, hook, song over. So you got like 3.5, 4 minutes, and that was a song. And throughout your experience listening to that song, it never seemed as though this song is too long.
Right.
But now we got these short attention spans, and you got these short attention span humans who are entering the music space. Songs are now a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. Before you know it, the song is over. There's no hook. And I don't necessarily know that is good for music. I don't know that can directly translate to you being able to maintain the same quality inherent in the art. It's like, look at sports. So basketball, for example, it's all about the 3-point shot, 3-point shot, 3-point shot, 3-point shot. So it's good when you make them. The problem is if you're having an off night and they're not going in, but you're so highly specialized in terms of the 3-point game, and we've adapted to this culture where it's all threes or busts, that if you have a night where your team isn't making threes, it's a loss and you can't pivot because you don't know what else to do. So at that point, all you're doing is shooting threes, and even though you're clanking, you're continuing to shoot, and it doesn't matter how many shots you miss, you're going to keep shooting because that's the way. It's to just shoot the 3 ball. And so on a night where you're off, it's essentially like you forfeited the game because you had an off night, but you had the inability to adjust to do something different to generate offense. And I kind of look at the music like the same way. Like we've pivoted to this microwave, version of the music, and there's no way to pivot off of it. And because that's what's being consumed on a more widespread basis, because that's what's being funneled via the labels and from the internet, that I think people are starting to kind of collectively examine the music and say, is this as good as it used to be? Again, oftentimes I find myself disqualifying myself from these types of conversations, because when I get around a bunch of people who are really in love with the music, even some of those people around my age group, they tell me that I'm just old and I ain't get it, and that I just need to get with it because this is the way the music is now.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, but I fundamentally disagree with that. I just kind of feel like good is good. Like I remember Jay-Z was asked a question years ago, um, what kind of music do you like? And his response was good music. So to him, and he elaborated further saying, I don't really get into liking one specific genre or one specific type of artist. It's just if it hits your ears and it sounds good, it's good music. Like it just is good or bad. Just like if a guy had a good game, he had a good game, and there's no nuance to that. Like you can't go 8 for 30 turn the ball over 10 times and shoot 60% from the free throw line, but try to convince me that you had a good game. Like you can't try to warp my brain into thinking that somehow is a good game when it's not. Some of this stuff is black and white, and to me, I always felt like good music was good music. If it's good, it's good, and if it's not, it's not. And I just think a lot of it is highly microwavable, and a lot of it has become very one tone. And you got a lot of these artists who are coming into this stuff, basically repeating a formula, because I guess they perceive it to be the formula for success. And when you talk about the potential for pop music potentially overtaking hip hop as, once again, the most dominant music form, because I would agree that, at this moment, rap and hip hop, or however you want to characterize it, is, the most popular form of music. Just go to any social gathering, and that'll affirm that assertion. I think there's something to be said for what can happen if every single song that you're putting out is about, running up on your ops, or having sex with your friend's girl, or, selling, dope to your cousin, or whatever the case may be. Like when every song is about that, uh, I believe that there's the potential for you to lose your mainstream appeal, because when you go mainstream, you have a large percentage of people who don't directly identify with that type of lifestyle. And so at a certain point, after years and years and years of that, people are going to start listening to the music, and they're going to start saying, this doesn't necessarily directly relate to me. So why am I listening to this again? Like artists like Uzi and Travis Scott, they can outlast that because, they're talking about having fun and popping pills. And, suburban kids can relate to that because suburban kids are doing that. But then you got a lot of these other artists who every single song, I feel like every time I turn on my Sirius, I'm listening to another song about, rappers who are going to run up on their ops, shoot on their ops, or, sell this dope, or go and have sex with this guy's baby mom just because he feels like it. It seems like every other song is about something like that. And eventually these mainstream audiences are going to say, well, I don't really live my life according to that code or credence. So I think there's a natural propensity for them to gravitate towards the music if there continues to be such a heavy dose to it of it. And so I kind of feel like all of that kind of plays a role in this thought or idea that at some point, the hip hop industry is going to lose position of its dominance. I think there's a lot of different factors that play into it, and those are just some of it. But I don't think that this guy Westside Boogie is necessarily incorrect. I do think that if artists did care more about the craft and pay more attention to detail and care less about the persona of being a hip hop artist, if there was more of that going on, then this would be less of a conversation. But yeah, I find a lot of the music to be extremely forgettable, highly microwavable, and just objectively speaking, not as good as it used to be. But
And
I'm old. Yeah, so whatever.
not and all facts there. Agree with that 100%. And I'll just say this for the microwave songs and the songs that's a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. Streaming has created that, and people want repeats, and so it's one of those things where you get a sample of it. You get a sampler of whatever dish. It's kind of like when you go in the mall and they give you the orange chicken, and it's like, ugh, I want more of this, and then so you naturally hit repeat, so you get another stream. People's attention spans are wavering, and they're not going to hang around for a 3-minute song, and they feel like they've gotten full off that 3-minute song. So it's best to chop it down to 2 minutes so you can get that stream again. So this is also a product of a streaming nature that's happened, and it's a byproduct of it. So yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also like like so. Most of the artists that I listen to are over 30. I don't listen to none of the newer guys, the younger people. I can't do it. So everybody who I listens to is like around my age, over 30 at least. And then, the guys who would be considered older. And whenever they put out new stuff, they're not adhering to that. They're putting out stuff based on when they initially started making their music. So it still seems as though part of it is generational. Because older artists seem to be exempt from that. Like whenever I listen to like when Rick Ross puts out his new albums, whenever that happens, or Pusha T, guys like that, guys who I like, even people like Kendrick, because Kendrick is over 30, and I'm not the hugest Kendrick fan in the world, but it's more of that, it's more of that traditional model of the longer song of the 3/16s in the chorus. There's multiple verses and a chorus. The song ends up being 3.5 minutes long at least, and I don't hear anybody complaining about those songs being too long. But those people are also talented in their craft, so I think some of it has to do with the fact that the newer artists are just, objectively speaking, again, not as good, not as talented. And when you're less talented, you need to do things like make songs that are shorter to cover up your flaws. It's like, what do you do with a guy who is limited? Like, again, here's another sports analogy, because I just find sports easily applicable to music. But like, what do you do with a guy who is a really good shooter but is a defensive liability? Well, you hide him on the court. You put him in places where he can't be exploited for his weakness, and you make sure that your rotations are sound enough that the other team's best offensive player isn't going to wind up in a one-on-one situation with that guy, because he'll cook him, because that guy is a defensive liability. Well, if that guy was not such a defensive liability, none of this would be an issue. The only reason why you have to hide that guy on the court is because you'll know he'll get cooked, because his feet are cement and he can't move laterally, and he's a horrible defensive liability. And so a lot of this is talent. Like, I personally think we wouldn't even be having this conversation if there were more active participants within the ecosystem of the music who just made better quality stuff, who just, plainly speaking, were better and more talented than they actually are. And I think part of why we're seeing this current downtrend is because the market is being oversaturated with so many of these artists who aren't really that good at the music, but may be good enough at selling the lifestyle. And so you take the trade-off. The music ain't as good, but their social media game is on point, and they can consistently put out this highly microwavable music that will capitalize off of them for a 6-month run. And then once we're done with them, they're no longer relevant. And they're not relevant because they can't stay relevant, and they can't stay relevant because they're not actually good or talented at what it is that they do. And so that's what I find is going on at a greater frequency now compared to the way it used to be. But we'll see if it changes. We'll see if it stays the same. But and again, I struggle because I don't know where my objectivity ends and where my subjectivity begins with this. I try to be as objective as possible, but at the end of the day, this is my opinion. I do kind of feel like it's not as good as it used to be. And a lot of it is the music industry itself, and a lot of it is the artists who are taking part, which is what, Westside Boogie spoke to. I think both of those elements can do their role to ensure that, this particular genre stays on top, because I do see a scenario in which it can be overtaken if it keeps doing what it's doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that was it for that one. That was good sound bites. Westside Boogie, appreciate you for the help on the channel, and good luck to you in the future. We'll see what continues to happen with this music stuff, but interesting comments. Next up, we are going to. We took a week off. But we made it back, and we are back with Kanye, as Kanye is really under fire. So, Kanye over the past week, with the media, he's made several media appearances, and he has incurred. He's taken on. He's experiencing some consequences as a result of his latest media appearances. So he's losing endorsements. Adidas dropped him. Balenciaga dropped him. Apparently, there's an issue going on with Def Jam. He's being dropped left and right. People are disassociating themselves from him, largely because he made comments that people perceive to be anti-Semitic. Not really going to get into the anti-Semitic stuff, but there was one particular thing that he said that I did want to talk about briefly, because I do find it to be interesting. And it is a theme that we have discussed on this channel before. So let's see. So Kanye recently was on Piers Morgan's channel, and it's unfortunate. This clip is only about 30 seconds. I couldn't find a longer clip, but I also didn't want to play a longer version of it from Piers Morgan's channel, because I feel like there's a guarantee that we're going to get slapped with a copyright on that. So there's a 30-second snippet that's kind of widely available on the internet that I figured we'd use. So let's see
bro.
here.
Yeah, my bad, bro. If you got that queued up, I don't have that. There you go.
Yeah, we got this.
Okay, cool.
So basically, what Kanye said on Piers Morgan that I found to be interesting is he essentially said that there's no single group of people who gets hated on or discriminated or marginalized more than the straight white male. I found this to be incredibly interesting. Most people are focusing on the anti-Semitic stuff, but I found this to be particularly interesting. So I figured we would play this and then talk about or react to it once we finish playing it, because we have somewhat touched on subject matters like this on the channel in the past. So let me play this up, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nobody that gets judged more than a straight white male. The straight white male has the least amount of a platform to even speak. A straight white male can't say, my wife hurt me today. And because people will say, well, you're hurting women. A straight white male can't say, hey, a black employee didn't come in to work on time, because then people will say you're racist. A straight white male can't speak on a homosexual person because they'll say you're homophobic.
All right. So that was pretty much what happened there with Kanye. He was talking about straight white males and how they can or cannot do certain things in today's society because they will get categorized as a particular thing. That thing being racist or homophobic, or whatever the case may be. So we've talked a lot about, the current climate of rhetoric and narratives, that's currently going on at both, in the mainstream media and in social media troll world. So, was there anything of particular note that you found interesting with that, albeit short snippet with Kanye talking about the straight white male not having a platform?
Yeah, I agree with him. 100%. I feel like masculinity in general is under attack, and well, at that point, straight white males get lumped in that same category. So here's the thing with Kanye, because people within the black community are having issues about the things that Kanye is saying. They're feeling like he's trying to be white and all this other stuff. And a comment like this, gets lumped into that type of rhetoric. But if you take a step back and you really try to observe what Kanye has been saying when it comes to issues like this, I do agree with him that white males can't say anything. It's so cringe to watch sports, for instance, because when there's a black quarterback, the commentators who are Caucasian can't say anything negative lest they seem racist. If there's a black head coach, everybody likes the black head coach, even though he sucks. But they can't say he sucks because they don't want to come off racist. So what woke culture has done is that white males can't be as critical as they would normally would have to be in a situation where they would have to be critical, lest they come off racist or homophobic, as Kanye said. So it becomes difficult to watch certain things because of this sensitivity that's gone on lately. So I do agree with him in that regard. So how about you? How do you feel about it?
So I've said on this channel a few times now that there are two groups of people that you can openly treat unfairly. Okay, let me take that back. There are two groups of people, two categories of people that can be treated unreasonably, and everyone is going to be okay with it because it's vogue to treat them that way, because it's perceived that they're getting their just due, because they are the root of all evil. They are at the root of what is wrong with American society, and those two groups of people are straight men and conservatives. So straight men and conservatives, it's vogue to be able to lambaste them in any way that you like, and not anyone's going to really say a word about that. And the intersection of that is the intersection of conservatives and straight men is straight white males. So
my bad, bro.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, technical difficulty. My bad.
So basically what I was saying was, I've always said that there are two categories of people in which it is vogue to make fun of, criticize, categorize as something nefarious, evil, negative, whatever the case may be, and that is conservatives and straight men. The intersection of that is straight white men. So in saying that, I think that is actually a correct statement. Now, people are going to get all up in arms about that because, again, the root of all evil in America today is based upon, essentially two tenets: the patriarchy and racism. So anyone who is perceived to be a proprietor of those two dynamics is going to be viewed as someone who needs to be taken down a peg, because they are at the root of everything that's wrong with society. And so when you're talking about the patriarchy, and when you're talking about racism, straight white men are pretty much at the head of that. And so, yeah, straight men, in particular, straight white guys, can't really do or say anything without being categorized as racist, homophobic, sexist, whatever word you want to use. And this is something that has been birthed as a result of, and people reject the idea of woke, because woke is this word that's been used as a weapon to try and categorize people who are not down with the cause. So you have people who are advocates for a more traditional idea of free speech, saying y'all are too woke, and then you have the woke people on the other side who are saying, oh, okay, well, you're only calling us woke because you're too afraid to confront your inherent racism, bigotry, whatever the case may be. And not everybody who is anti-woke is therefore inherently racist or a bigot or homophobic or whatever the case is. But unfortunately, when it comes to the internet and the way that we disseminate messages nowadays, things just get lost in translation, and we forfeit the existence of nuance in lieu of just wanting to shout to the mountaintops our inherent righteousness and talk about how our position is just, and therefore we're able to say and do whatever they want. Like, we just lose track of the nuance, and we just kind of leap to the conclusion that because someone said something, even though there's nuance inherent in their message, it therefore must mean that they are some kind of a hateful person. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, there was the actress Gina Carano. Gina Carano said that being a conservative in America is essentially the same as being a persecuted Jew during the Holocaust. Now, she was someone who was proudly conservative, and she wasn't afraid to express her conservative viewpoints publicly, like on her social media channels and whenever she did interviews and stuff like that. So she was already kind of one of the enemies of the state per se, and I say that sarcastically, but she was already like an enemy of the state because she dared to express any conservative point of view. Because how dare you be conservative? Because that's just wrong. You can't be conservative. So she was someone who was like, she was proud in her conservative points of view, and she wasn't afraid to express them. And so when she said that, she was canceled. And the reason why I say she was canceled is because following those comments, she was fired from her job as an actress on that Star Wars show, The Mandalorian, on Disney Plus. And I found that to be reprehensible, because it might be okay for you to take issue with her analogy. Like, I can admit, probably in poor taste, to compare being a person in a free society to someone who is of Jewish descent during the Holocaust. That's probably an analogy that's not necessarily going to wash. But my point was, can we actually assess the message that she is trying to convey? And the message that she was trying to convey was there is an imbalance in terms of the way conservative messages are received, juxtaposed to the way liberal messages are perceived or received. And if you express a conservative point of view, you get attacked. And if you express a liberal point of view, you don't get attacked. And that's because liberalism has been co-opted in this country as righteousness. And, conservativeness has been co-opted in this country as you're a bad guy. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair to people who have, conservative points of view that at the very least can be perceived as disagreeable. And so I think that's at the heart of what Kanye was trying to suggest with that, because oftentimes straight white males have a tendency to express traditionalist or conservative points of view that often get chastised or raked through the coals in the eyes of the mainstream media as said, word, racist, homophobic, sexist, so on and so forth. And so by default, they actually do have a limited platform because they're walking on eggshells. If they say something, it will get flipped around to mean that they must be some kind of way, even though they're just expressing a point of view that you otherwise only find to be disagreeable.
I agree 100%. And that's why I said it boils down to the point to where, like, I watch nothing but sports. And so whenever there's a black person, like I said, in head coaching, GM position, quarterback, something like that, where things were traditionally white, and then now there's a black person there, but they suck at the job, the commentators or whoever, they can't say anything about it. lest they seem racist. And to me, that's super cringe. I can't stand it. But that's where all of this woke culture has led. And you also brought up sexist too, because don't let a man say that a woman's not doing her job the right way, because it's a standard for whatever job it could be. And if she's not doing it to the standard that it needs to be done, male or female, then it should be able to be called out. But you can't call it out nowadays lest he seems sexist. So yeah, it's going on. It's been happening for, I don't know, the last few years. I mean, it's been going on for a little bit, but it's really gotten more aggressive lately. And yeah, it sucks that we can't actually have objective point of views anymore, because of woke culture and social justice warriors. And yeah, it's sad. But Kanye right now, he doesn't care. And if he has something on his mind and on his heart, he's just letting it fly. And so in this commentary that he was given, pertaining to this topic, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I do too. It's just, there are, I firmly believe that, this is just how we perceive certain things and themes. And so there is a line of demarcation that has been etched in the sand in westernized cultures, particularly in America. Express one type of point of view and you're on the side of righteousness. Express a different type of point of view and you're on the side of not righteousness. And it's unfortunate because you should be able to coexist with people who express points of view that you find to be disagreeable. But that's not where we are. You know what I'm saying? Like if a famous person were to get on CNN, right? Like, look, and he brought up, so let's keep it within the context of straight white males. If a straight white guy goes on to CNN right now and says, me and my wife are expecting our first child, and I'm looking forward to my child identifying whatever sex they want to be. I hope that like if that guy got on CNN and he said, any public figure, famous person, let's say this guy goes on CNN, straight white guy, let's say he goes on CNN and he says, me and my wife were expecting our first child, and I'm really hoping that my child is transgender. I'm really hoping that my child identifies with whatever sex they choose. I really hope that my child is gender fluid or that their sexual orientation is fluid. I'm looking forward to raising a kid who identifies with whatever sex they want. That guy will get celebrated because he is expressing what is perceived to be the righteous point of view, which is the liberal point of view. Now, let that same guy get on CNN and say, me and my wife were expecting our first child. And personally, I have a preference for my child being heterosexual. And I would rather that my child identify with whatever sex that they are born with. I don't want my child to be gender fluid. I want my child to be gender binary. I don't want my child to be transgender. I prefer them to be a heterosexual man or woman. That guy will probably get criticized on the internet and in the media. And to me, all that guy did was express a conservative / traditional point of view. To me, that's perfectly reasonable. But to suggest that you have a preference for heterosexuality, especially if you're a straight white male suggesting that, it must mean that you have a problem with LGBTQ people. And it must mean that you're homophobic. Those types of claims will be levied against that guy. And it doesn't even have to be straight white males. It can be any straight man, because like I said, the patriarchy is largely viewed nowadays as an enemy of the state. But the at the top of that hierarchy of people who we hate for expressing these types of viewpoints are straight white males, because of their straightness and their whiteness combined, as opposed to two guys like us who have straightness going against us, but not whiteness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that guy gets on the CNN and he says that he'll get destroyed, and what did he say? That he has a preference for his kid being heterosexual, but you can't say that because it must mean that you have something against the LGBTQ X, Y, and Z people, because you just can't say that. Especially if you're a straight male, especially if you're a straight white male. Best to not say nothing at all, or toe the right line and say, you hope your kid's transgender. So, it's that kind of stuff. That's the reality that we live in. It's unfortunate. And so, even though that was a 30-second snippet, I do agree with that. I do think that straight white males have the least platform to say things that are truthful, because it's easiest to categorize them as some sort of anti-group because of their status as hetero and white. And, it's unreasonable, but that's the hyper liberal world that we live in.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right, man. So I guess we had our weekly injection of Kanye. We'll see if we need the needle again.
He'll be back next week, I'm sure.
Yeah. I gave it a break, man. I try not to do Kanye every week, but man, he just delivers. He's like UPS.
Amazon.
Yeah, for real. That's more like Amazon.
Prime.
Kanye is like Amazon. Yeah, he's like Amazon Prime. He gives it to you, and he gives it to you quick. No shipping charges needed. But yeah, so that'll do it for this week's. That'll do it for this week's video. A bit shorter form, but good stuff nevertheless. As usual, my name is JV Wins. That's Dogon SS. You can find Conscious Approach on the website at consciousapproach.com, on the Instagram page at Con Approach, CONAPPROACH. If you're watching this video on the Meta page, like the video, like the page, follow the page, share the video, comment wherever you see this video, like and subscribe to this channel. We certainly appreciate you supporting logical content. As always, we are getting some new things in the works. We're going to have the audio versions of the broadcast available on podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that good stuff. So we're getting that off the ground. Also look out for Conscious Approach on TikTok coming soon. So check that out. You can also find me on Instagram at JVWins. So find me there. Hit me up. I will respond. We also respond on this channel. So please hit us up there as well. Otherwise, as always, I appreciate you supporting logical content.
Yes, sir. And the name is Dogon SS. And you can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS or YouTube at Dogon SS. And like I say on every pod, guys, don't be too high, don't be too low. You know what I'm saying? Keep it calm, keep it chill, and keep it player. All right. Just stay in the neutral, man. Don't let anybody get you off your pivot, man. So until next time, everybody.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Stay on your square, man. Stay on your job. Continue to support logical content. Subscribe to the channel. And until next time, we are out. Peace.
Peace.